Hi, my name's John, and this is Business Update. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about with regards to Novak Djokovic's decisions to still not get vaccinated, and he's willing to take the risk or burden of missing tournaments, which is kind of disappointing if you think about it. And it's been since during the Australian Open, since the whole debacle began with the decision to get an exemption, which is kind of outrageous if you think about it, because the mere fact that you wanted to get exempted for being the number one player in the world, so meaning should the top players be exempted from being vaccinated to be able to play the tournaments. Now, obviously, he's still the number one player in the world currently, one of the best players, and obviously missing out the tournament hurts his chances of retaining the title, and as well as winning more titles in that I would say twilight, the remaining years of his career before he retires. And obviously this is a personal decision, but obviously has significant repercussions in terms of as a role model, how it affects other people, looks at his decision, and others would follow his stance here. So understanding his decision makes tries to make sense of the situation. That doesn't excuse him from being a responsible role model, which regardless he accepts this or not. But anyway, so let's take a closer look here. So according to bbc.com, there you go. It mentions Novak Djokovic's willingness to miss tournaments over vaccine mandates. Now, obviously, in particular in Australia, the vaccine mandate is still required, as well as tournaments in the United States. And the U.S. Open is held there, and other tournaments as well. And he's willing to take the risk there. But let's read on the article here. So he's stating that he would rather miss out on future tennis trophies than be forced to get a vaccine. Now, what's interesting here is I don't know what's the apprehension here, and he stated in this article also that he was vaccinated when he was younger. So I don't know what's the apprehension here with the now obviously the vaccine that we're taking has certain associated risk. There's no 100% guarantee that it won't have an adverse effect, whether at the present time or sometime in the future here. But obviously the majority or the CDC or even the WHO deem it that the benefits of getting vaccinated outweighs the downside of not getting vaccinated. And obviously some people has taken this for granted, that you live in a privileged or in a developed country, while in other countries many people are still dying left and right because they can't even get vaccinated soon enough. So let's read further. Now, he goes on to mention that he said missing in competitions such as the French Open is the price that he's willing to pay, which is fine. I mean, that's a personal decision, which I think everyone can get on board, because everyone has their free choice. But obviously, as a big TV personality or big role model, that a lot of people who looks up to him, and obviously he's a big target of sorts that people look up, that if he is willing not to get vaccinated, others would follow his suits, whether he knows this or not. Anyway, the he goes on to say that the conditions while he was detained is considered very hard. And he mentions here that he should not be associated with the anti-vax movement. Well, the fact that you don't want to get vaccinated is already a admission that you're anti-vaccination, unless you provide substantial evidence that it's not safe or detrimental to your health, or unless it has a severe impact to your current well-being here, which he hasn't mentioned at any point. And he goes on to mention that he supports individual rights to choose. Well, choosing to get vaccinated and not vaccinated obviously is a very critical aspect, because in other aspects, in other regions, people die left and right. And obviously we haven't reached that threshold that the entire population here in our, not just in the country but worldwide, would you would consider that everyone's safe from contracting the disease, or even if you get contracted, that you have this herd immunity effect that protects the majority of the population here. Anyway, it mentions here that he's stating that what happened in the Australian Open, that he was given a medical exemption, but the fact is that he shouldn't have been given an exception unless it pertains to his health, that he couldn't take the medicine, but it was a choice that he clearly stated, and giving him exception was a big no-no from the tournaments themselves. Now, I understand that the Australian Open management or committee, obviously wanting to get the number one player in the world to play in the tournament, would draw in large amounts of crowds, but obviously has received a backlash over giving exceptions here. And we'll discuss also another athlete with regards to Kyrie Irving, so we'll talk about that in a bit. Anyway, so he mentions also the address speculations about the timing of his positive COVID way back in December, and discuss his own attitudes towards the vaccine, and said that the vaccine requirements in certain tournaments will change, adding he was hoping he can play for many more years. And what if that mandate doesn't change anytime soon? So does it mean he's willing to forego the how many years he has left on his career, and miss out on those opportunities? Obviously, he's going to miss out on the endorsement. Obviously, the prize winnings, which he had a strong case of winning the tournament, and the prize winnings. And obviously, this does not look well for a top athlete that people look up to, and this is what they, or what he prioritized over it. Anyway, when asked why, Djokovic mentions that the principles of decision making on his body are more important than any title or anything else. Which, and I'm trying to tune my body as much as I possibly can. Now, is this based on science, or basis on just feelings here? And obviously, at the end of the day, you want to take care of your body as best as you can, and hopefully he doesn't get any severe case, because obviously the sad thing about is, people who were asymptomatic tested positive, or later was positive, and got severe illness and to the point of death here, which is, I think, the whole point of the vaccination. We're trying to avoid here, to minimize the risk here. And I don't know what's his basis for not protecting himself. And it's not just the yourself that you're getting vulnerable. Obviously, you have the rest of your family, whoever is within proximity to you, will be affected as well, which is, that's the sad part. It's not just who you will be responsible for, but for the people within your community, or in your family, or in your house as well here. And obviously, this is going to be disappointing for many fans. Even I was a big fan of him during his heyday, even up to now. And obviously, making this choice will limit the exposure that he will be able to play in big tournaments still, even though he's not necessarily in his twilight compared to Rafael Nadal and even Roger Federer here. And hopefully he would change his mind, so that getting vaccinated. Now, obviously, the concern is the side effects here, but so far so good. Majority of the people who got vaccinated hasn't had any severe side effect. Maybe as of present, or maybe we cannot see it sometime in the future. But the point here is, he's risking a lot by not getting vaccinated, and he understands the consequence here. Now, whatever his justification, whether that's reasonable or not, that's a different discussion altogether here, which goes to another discussion here, another athlete, which it's a hot topic here. That's why athletes should be more responsible in terms of how they deal with their persona, so to speak, or how people perceive them. Now, obviously, nothing is perfect. Individuals are flawed. Even I make mistakes. But the question here is, do we rise up to the occasion, so that especially if there's a lot of young kids looking up to those athletes, and follow their lead, so to speak, right? In another case here, we have Kyrie Irving, who plays for the Brooklyn Nets, has who has been playing part-time basis for the team, which is kind of sad. And especially, obviously in the case of Djokovic here, it's an individual sport, so there's no repercussion or affecting other people. Maybe with the exception of the team that he has hired. But in the case of Kyrie Irving, he has a team that he needs to support, and the fact that he's not vaccinated severely hampers the chances of them reaching the finals or even winning the championship. It all boils down to to Kevin Durant to shoulder the load, and the point is, it caused the separation of for James Harden, their former teammate, to be traded or force his way out again, to be traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. And then the issue of getting back Ben Simmons, which is based on the news now that it's looking likely that he's not going to be able to play this season because of his back issue. Anyway, going back to Kyrie Irving now, obviously for a team game, you have to be present there. And, sad to say, there's a mandate in New York that you have to be vaccinated to be able to play. Now, what's kind of interesting here is, even though employees within the city are not allowed to work if you're not vaccinated, but outsiders who are not vaccinated are allowed to work in the city, which is kind of ironic and moronic if you think about it. But regardless of how ludicrous the policies or regulations are, obviously you're still beholden, the team or the sports is beholden to the regulations that is imposed in the city. And obviously, the simple solution for both of their situation is, if they were to get vaccinated, it would have solved their problems, right? He could have played right at the start of the season and helping his team uh, blend in. James Harden would have been part of the team still, and they would have been coasting, maybe the number one seed all the way to the finals here. But that's not the case now. A lot of things have changed because of that decision here, and it impacted the whole team here, especially if you're Kevin Durant, thinking that you'll be partnering one of the greatest scorers of Kyrie Irving. And as of today's recording, there was the last game with what do you call this, with the Orlando Magic, where he scored 60 points. I mean, he's a tremendous player, but in terms of decision wise, it's not benefiting him personally as well as the team, and it doesn't look well for for making so many excuses and not taking on the responsibility of, as a high profile athlete. You should do the best, what's best for your team. And you said you're supposed to be for the team, you're for the team to win the championships, but based on your action, that's contrary here. Anyway, so let's take a look here. According to Yahoo Sports.com, it mentions here Kyrie Irving shouldn't get an exception to, no matter how ridiculous the NYC mandate is. And as mentioned, so he could only play half of the games outside of the New York's state here, and obviously this doesn't bode well in terms of work gelling together as a team. And obviously this doesn't help Kevin Durant's case of making a strong push later in the playoffs here. And now making excuses for him that he should be given an exception, which is, if you give exception to one person, then you should give exceptions to everyone as well, which obviously doesn't hold any water, and it's not a strong case here. The fact that even before the pandemic, he has already you know given us an idea, a look as to how erratic his behavior are. So can you rely on his performance on a day-to-day basis, on a game-to-game basis? Now, on court, obviously he's a tremendous player, but obviously with his on and off part-time playing, his performance is somewhat erratic as well. I mean, he's still a great player nonetheless. And obviously not being able to play in key parts, especially in the playoffs. So if you're going to play a 7-game series and you cannot play a home game, imagine in a game 7 scenario, it's a crucial game and you cannot play because of that mandate. So whose fault is that? Is it the city or is it on you? Because it's a decision that you could have simply addressed by getting vaccinated. And as I mentioned earlier, that it affects a lot of family members, people in your community and in your team, right? If they get infected and so forth. The fact that the last game that he wasn't supposed to attend, he no not attend the game, but visit or be inside the locker room with his teammates. I think the team was fine for some reason, unless the requirement or the mandate for the city changes. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. And by then, the season could have been over by then, and they could have wasted another year of Kevin Durant's prime here. So anyway, let's look further with if Kyrie Irving has a justification for what he's doing here. Anyway, according to the article, Kyrie Irving looks, he finds people to blame and those willing to exercise meaningful social capital to champion him. Well, now it's Kevin Durant who's championing him with regards to giving him an exception, which is kind of stupid if you think about it, because what's the what does Kevin Durant know about the vaccine that an unvaccinated individual should be allowed to play a sport, right? It's just a sport. It's not life threatening, right? And if that were the case, then would that apply also to medical services people? I don't think he would allow that, or he would agree to that situation. But anyway, it mentions here there's always a reason, a drawn out story, an explanation. And when he went on a 2 week staycation last season, which gives you an idea how erratic his behavior is. But the team supported him nonetheless. And he mentions here, and then obviously the issue what happened to James Harden being unhappy with the unstable nature of the situation of being traded, obviously exacerbated the situation. So meaning in that situation alone, that decision of not getting vaccinated, not being able to play the big three in their team, caused the departure of James Harden. I mean, they were practically close to reaching the finals if Kyrie Irving wasn't injured. And he also in the article mentioned he blamed what they call this, Giannis Antetokounmpo regarding the situation here, but not taking onus that injuries do happen within the season, and it's part of the game. But the question is, what do you do to make up for the lost time that happened the previous season here? But again, blame game is what's happening here, according to the article, which I tend to agree more and more here. And even though the mandate doesn't make sense for the city, Kevin Durant speaking on his behalf doesn't make sense. Now, if I were Kevin, I should have talked to Kyrie Irving. What is his priority? If he prioritizes winning championship, then he should have been vaccinated long time ago. And if he still insists on not getting vaccinated, which is his right, similar to Djokovic, he should be willing to pay the consequences. Do you want to be part of the team, or do you want to be traded to another? Which is another issue, which I don't think he can be traded easily. Who would get his services, knowing that you cannot get him? Can only get him some of the time, not all of the time here. Now, it mentions here unvaccinated performers or workers in the city uh, cannot work in the city, while unvaccinated people outside of the city are allowed. Now, obviously, the issue at the end of the day is the responsibility and accountability of any individuals with regards to making a decision will have ramifications, and you cannot have the teammate do it for you, or the team, which they're kind of tiptoeing here. Obviously, it's a delicate situation, and even the league speak on your behalf and make an exception for you and you alone, because you don't want to get vaccinated, which goes to the main issue, the root cause, that if you don't want to get vaccinated and then you want to be exempted, so what are you sending the signals to the rest of the world that privileged people should be given more leeway than the rest? And that doesn't bode well for his narrative here, no matter how tremendous his playmaking is. And which is, to be fair, he's proven that he is a tremendous player. But at the end of the day, being a player is just one aspect of being a person here, and you have to go beyond what you do outside of the court, and you will be rated, or you will be evaluated as human beings, right? I mean, we're not perfect beings. We're flawed, but you have to make the best choice for the majority, not just for yourselves. Otherwise, don't play the game that's going to cause harm to, your teammates as well as to your loved ones here. But the question here is, does he make a strong case here? And here's the key part. Cases in China has surged and the lockdown has been instilled again. So, meaning, it's not over yet for many of us. And if we're not careful, we will go through the situation what we encountered way back in 2020, which I think many of us have experienced or still experiences. Don't want to go back to that scenario again. And obviously, it all boils down to what Kyrie Irving prioritizes. If he prioritizes his health, then don't play, right? Don't try to mix both and try to make exceptions so that you will be given priority, that you can both play and still not get vaccinated. You cannot have both. And I think, it's a repercussion now, unless the mandate changes, then maybe sometime in the future, but not as of right now. Then, it's going to affect your team. But if I'm your teammate, I'll be very disappointed. I'm doing my part to support the team, but what is he doing, right? And that's the main sticking point, I think, for many of us. And it's kind of disappointing, especially if you're a regular person looking in the scenario that, he's such in a privileged situation that he should have taken advantage of the situation by, showing people that, be responsible, do the right thing, and, live with it. Now, if you're against it, then go how Novak Djokovic is willing to take the risk. Now, obviously, those are two different sports, so, it's a different scenario here again. But anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with their choices in terms of not getting vaccinated? I mean, at first I was apprehensive of getting vaccinated. Obviously, the concerns, I think we all have the same concerns regardless, regarding the side effects of how it would affect me, currently or in the future, years or decades from now. But my rationale is I'm with my family, my kids, my parents. I want to make sure I'm doing what's best for my family. And if it's getting vaccinated, the right thing to do to at least minimize the concern, then, it's a peace of mind. But if I'm not vaccinated, then I'm just exposing myself and my family, or family members, to that vulnerability, which, I don't want to have that conscious, because there have been cases that, people thinking that getting vaccinated is not a big deal, and then if they get infected and have that severe reaction, then, it's the choice that you make. But hopefully, you can still rectify and, you know make a better choice for yourself and for your family. Anyway, keep everyone updated with regards to the situations here in the future. As always, I'll see you again next Wednesday. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. As always, take care. See you in the next one.